So I know you've probably seen at least like 20 Senior Bowl mock drafts at this point. Here's another one. Let's go, man. The Senior Bowl is so lit this year. I mean, we should call it the Junior/Senior Bowl at this point now. But a lot of first-round prospects possibly in this year's Senior Bowl. So let's go and do a 4-round mock draft. I also included some free agent signings with this one. I tried to do at least one or at least a re-sign for your team to make this more understandable. Like, okay, this is the approach that I take, because free agent's going to change things in all reality. And in a lot of mock drafts, I feel like you have to know at least one or two guys that they sign. So let's go and do this thing. We're going to go team by team. Start with the Tennessee Titans. And with the first overall pick, ding, we went Abdul Carter. And I get it. You see a lot of Cam Ward or even Shedeur Sanders out there. I think when you're at the number 1 overall pick in this year's class, I don't feel comfortable, especially with Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter on the board. Those two prospects, to me, I really cannot pass on that. And we also had them going after Sam Darnold in free agency, maybe to give him like a 3-year type of contract. 2 years of that is guaranteed. I think that's what he's going to get in the open market, still, even though having some of those bad games at the end of the season will lower his contract value. I think that he is still worth that sign, and what he showed through a full season span is worth giving that chance on to. So I'm trying to reason my opinion on that, and I think that is the best case scenario. And I think Sam Darnold is as good as these rookie quarterbacks out here, especially for this next season, and what Brian Callahan's going to look for right off the bat with his job potentially on the line as well. And that way you bring in an Abdul Carter who's going to be a freak of nature off the edge. They need more edge talent is strictly because you have both your guys being free agents next year, Harold Landry and also Arden Key, both being free agents. So I think that makes the most sense. Abdul Carter, you could argue, is the most talented player in this draft class. In round 2, I went offensive line. Let's go and get another big fella in the trenches, right? You have Bill Callahan, who loves them big offensive linemen. Here's a big one, Arion Ursary, and in all the good ways, too. The dude is super powerful. When he gets hands on you, it's over. But that is the one thing that when you look at the Senior Bowl where he really struggled was the inside counter moves. And when he is not able to get hands on you, you can get around him with quickness. You saw that from Abdul Carter when they went up in his matchup. But you move him over to that right tackle position, or you move J.C. Latham back over to the right tackle position. No matter what, you got yourself 2 big star tackles, hopefully, for the bookend future. And then on a day number 3, and we got round 4 picks, we started off with getting some help with Jalen Milroe as a receiver, a playmaker for Sam Darnold. I love his speed, and he was just super smooth at the Senior Bowl. Like, he made every catch, too. I didn't see him really drop the football. I thought his routes were pretty clean as well. I really came away impressed with Jalen Milroe, and he kind of solidified. He didn't do anything to wow me, but at the same time, he did not disappoint. He came out there and looked like an NFL receiver. And then for our last pick, we got Jonas Sanker. I felt like Virginia safety, he looked also very, very good at the Senior Bowl. Just looked good in coverage, and he was good in the one-on-one drills, especially for the safety position. It's a really challenge. The cornerback position in general at the one-on-ones is a tough position to be in, but he held his own and made some plays out there too. And he's somebody that I feel like you got to think about their safety position in the long haul as well, because really the only guy under contract right now is Amani Hooker. So you got Quandre Diggs being a free agent. So I think they need to at least find a running mate there or some long-term value, because also Hooker, I think, is going into a contract year in 2025. So something to keep an eye out on, and that's just trying to add some more value there at the end of this draft. On to the Cleveland Browns here. We started off Travis Hunter. I didn't go Cam Ward. Once again, I just think that you cannot pass up on one of those top 2 guys. Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, if you can solidify one of those guys, I just think it's worth getting those. It's such a difficult conversation to have. I get that they need a quarterback, and they are a team where you get a quarterback in here, and I'm not saying that they're going to immediately be a Super Bowl team, but they could be a very good football team and very, very quickly. So I could totally understand, get that Cam Ward vibes, but I went quarterback in the 2nd round. I got Jaxson Dart. He's got a better football name, right? I mean, Jaxson Dart. Who doesn't love a name with Jaxson Dart? That is a quarterback name if I've ever heard of one. You pair him into that offense, though, with Stefanski, get him rolling, get him going. Maybe you re-sign your guy like either Jameis Winston, or in this case scenario, I got Kirk Cousins. An old friend there with Stefanski. So Kirk Cousins, he ends up moving on from Atlanta, and now he comes over here to Cleveland on like a 1-year prove-it deal situation, or maybe even give him, it'll be very cheap, and that's really all that they can afford as well, because their contract situation are a little bit tricky. You go get him, you get Jaxson Dart to be able to develop for that full rookie season. get some of those mistakes and more accustomed to an NFL offense coming from a Lane Kiffin, RPO heavy centric, kind of gimmicky offense at times. That's going to be something where he needs to see a little bit of develop with Dart. And even when you looked in the Senior Bowl game too, it was a little bit lost. He missed some reads. He was a little slow with some of the throws. A lot of talent there. If you can unlock that potential, if you know how to use him, I think he could be a high upside guy. And at the top of the second round, I can get that. I can get behind it. It's still a little early in my opinion, but definitely has the talent. Oh, here's a fun offensive player to add in, Cam Skattebo. You better believe Cam Skattebo is going to come in there and give you 150%. 200%, man. He's going to be like Cyborg breaking his limiter out there. He just runs hard. He can pass the football. He can do a little bit of everything there, and going to be a beast if you do have to look at Nick Chubb in the long-term positioning there. And then we go with Wyatt Millam. He had a rough week at the Senior Bowl, so he drops to the end of the third round. I still think he's going to go relatively, within the top 100 picks. He could fall outside the top 100 picks after the Senior Bowl. He really struggled. I think the tape, though, is still very, very good, and that's why I'm not lowering him too much yet. Maybe I have to go back into the tape and revisit some of this stuff, but I did do a full evaluation on him, and I think he's still a good football player, and he'll be that long-term left guard for Joe Antonio, and there's a lot of uncertainty there. And another thing is, I didn't include this, but one other mention is I think they would have to sign a left tackle here, okay, or at least a competition with DeJuan Jones, Jack Conklin. They've had some injuries there. So that's the one thing I would point out here is you may want to try to sign somebody else as a swing tackle in this case scenario. Finally, we got Jordan Burch, going to add another edge rusher into the room. I think that Isaiah McGuire's come along really well, and you got Bonio Oronquo is still under contract as well. However, they still need to start thinking about adding a little bit more depth behind Myles Garrett. In such a case, if he were to be traded, then you'd have to look at this earlier. But I think Burch gives you another nice quality pass rusher. He's been so good for the Ducks, and I thought that was a tremendous value. And okay, here we go. Cam Ward's off the board. You're like, oh my goodness, about time, right? Cam Ward off the board. The New York Football Giants solidify your quarterback here. And they go get Cameron Ward, the shooter from Miami. Can't wait till I see Shooter McGavin over there in Happy Gilmore. Boo, man. I'm so excited to see that movie. You got Armin Embu, though, here. We don't need to explain Cam Ward too much. You got to get a quarterback if you're the Giants. I think they're in desperate mode to get a quarterback. We get Armin Embu here at the top of the second round. I would have loved to seen him at the Senior Bowl. I know a lot of people have him even inside the top 20 in this draft class, and I could see that. Embu is a really talented player. I think he needs to work on some things, especially if he's going to play as a tackle at the next level. The Giants, you got to have to work him in at that right guard position. Greg Van Roten, free agent. And also Jermaine Illuminor gives you versatility, so he can play on the inside. You get your best man in the best position there. They are going to have some voids down that right side. Omar Norman Lott and Q Robinson going to help out that defensive line rotation, right? Omar Norman Lott, a little bit of a tongue twister, going to be a nice 1-2 punch with Sexy Dexy on that interior. Get yourself another pass rushing monster on the interior of that defensive line. Q Robinson, a lot of upside with this guy. They need a little bit of depth. Azeez Ojulari probably going to get paid in free agency, so Q's going to come right in there, and on Q, right, is what I should have said. Beep. But yeah, man, Q Robinson going to be a really, really fun prospect to watch how he grows and develops because he's got all the traits, man, to be a rock star. He needs to get some more play strength, but he holds his own, man. He's got some good length for his size, especially, and he's got crazy athleticism. Then Pat Bryan here from Illinois, going to be a outside vertical type of guy, one-on-one, Slayton type of replacement here for their offense. If you end up losing him, he can be that or like that go ball winner on the perimeter with Malik Neighbors and then Wandell in the slot. And we also signed Asante Salmon to give you that or at least some more understanding, more talent in that cornerback room, because I think they still need it. Cordell Flott can be a good swingman in this case scenario in the slot and on the outside. On to the New England Patriots, baby. Let's go. We got a playmaker. You're like, what? Luther Burden, you're joking me right here. This is you gotta be joking yourself, but Luther Burden III. I've been watching a little bit of Luther Burden, so maybe some recency bias. I see this guy as a DJ Moore, Garrett Wilson, something of that nature type of prospect. He's just such an athletic specimen for his size and physical nature that he brings to the table. I just don't see how this guy doesn't translate into a really good football player, and I do think he has more upside than Tetairoa McMillan. Athletically speaking, he is just on a different level, and I think he's got what it takes. And that's no knock against Tetairoa McMillan. McMillan is a better receiver right now, but I think Burden, with better quarterback play, will be a 1,000-plus yard receiver year in, year out. and you get yourself that ultimate number one weapon for Drake May. I get it. This is going to be one where you're like, you could trade it back and get him at like 15 or 10, right? I think he's going to go earlier, especially after the combine. People see how well he moves. He moves different, man. Then you got Jack Sawyer, the captain. Good value here at the top of the second. They need more pass rush. So you pair him along with Keon White, develop some more pass rushers. Jared Wilson, they're going back to Georgia to find hopefully their next mainstay at the center position. David Andrews, what was he? I believe he was a free agent signing or a undrafted guy that they picked up out of Georgia, but he was out of Georgia. And this time they do have to draft him. But Jared Wilson, uber athletic, and he's got a ton of potential there and can be their center of the future. And I've heard some rumors that Cole Strange might end up being the long-term center. It's something they could look at, and if they feel that way, then maybe you draft a guard here. But I think that Wilson, this value makes a lot of sense to find their center. You can keep Cole Strange at left guard, Michael Onwenu at right guard. We signed Ronnie Stanley at left tackle. The right tackle position could be a little bit in flux, but you have some competition in there and can figure that out. And you could always keep Michael Onwenu still at right tackle. And then we go on to their final two picks, Chris Paul Jr. and Noah Williams out of California. He had a great Shrine Bowl, and the dude looks really impressive, especially at his size. He's a smooth guy, and he was third all-team cornerback, I believe, in the country. So he's up there, man, and you can see it at the East-West Shrine Bowl. He definitely has what it takes to hang there. And if you lose Jonathan Jones, well, you're going to need to find another cornerback. I expect them to sign somebody in free agency to fill that, but let's go ahead and add some more youth into the room. Chris Paul Jr. add some more athleticism into that linebacking room. Juwan Bentley's a free agent in 2026, and so is Jelani Tavai, so they need to at least try to think about the future, and Paul's going to give them some more athleticism in that room. Really good coverage ability with Chris Paul. On to the Jaguars here, and we're going to jag right our way into the Will Johnson pick. It's one you see over and over again. I'm sorry, Jags fans, but I think it makes so much sense. They need another cornerback in that room. So let's do it. And then Donovan Jackson here at the top of the second, going to get themselves the Brandon Sheriff replacement. Help out that offensive line, make that run blocking go even more stronger for ETN and Bigsby. Then you got Kyle Kennard, South Carolina edge rusher. He has got some nice athletic explosiveness to him and good solid size as well. Maybe a little bit under that 6'5" rating. It's just under 6'4" that he came listed in off ESPN and all the sites you're going to see, but he definitely has the length to back it up, almost 34-inch arms, and obviously the athleticism and the explosiveness is all there with Kennard to be a good third edge rusher. And then we go Andrew Mukaba, another playmaker in the back end, right? I mean, we re-signed Andre Sisco. However, Darnell Savage gives you versatility, and they still need to start thinking about, because Savage, they could move on from after this next season. So I still think it would make sense to add another playmaker into the room, into that back end, and Sisco's going to do that. Let's finish up this secondary, right? Double dip in the secondary. Then you got Ricky White and Dylan Gabriel to finish off this draft. Ricky White, he looked great at the East-West Shrine Bowl. He had this one route, like this little dig route in the end zone was just crazy. And he shows off those movement skills. He came in a lot less weight than I thought he was. So that's the one slight on him and why maybe he goes at this range instead a little bit earlier. Anyway, really like him and what he could bring as that potential, like if you end up losing Christian Kirk in free agency, he could give you some more help in that regard. Final pick here, Dylan Gabriel, as I was talking about. Let's go get a backup quarterback. I think Gabriel looked great. I thought he was the best quarterback actually at the Senior Bowl. I know people are talking about Jaxson Dart. I thought Gabriel was the best personally. That's just my opinion, but I wasn't at the Senior Bowl, so there's that. I just watched the coverage and everything like that. I was not able to watch the game. Unfortunately, I was at work, and I can't find it on YouTube anywhere, so I'm going to have to keep looking and seeing if it gets posted. I can't even find highlights, so I don't know, man. They make those Senior Bowl tough to watch. But that's the Jaguars mock draft here. And then on to the Raiders. We're going to go ahead and get Ashton Jeanty, the running back from Boise State. Hey, look, Pete Carroll, let's go get a dynamic runner. I'm passing on Shedeur Sanders and quarterback because they got Russell Wilson. We're going to get a quarterback a little bit later because Pete Carroll a lot of times don't draft first-round quarterback. He'll get a guy on day 2 and then develop him, and he's a good developer of quarterbacks. So I'm going to try to take some realism there with this, and everyone should in their blue and right mind is mocking Shedeur, and I am too, so I got to be in fairness. I'm going to get Jeanty, though. I think Jeanty is just a unique prospect. I really do. I think he is totally worth this pick at number 6 overall. I really do. And then you got Maxwell Harrison. He had a really good Senior Bowl, very sticky cover, man. Still needs to get a little more physical and press coverage. He showed that, though, a little bit more at the Senior Bowl. Still the weight check mark. I would like to get him up to like 185 by the combine, a good weight. Overall, really like his movement skills and his playmaking ferocity. Trey Harris, going to give him a perimeter outside wide receiver that they need. And for your quarterback of Russell Wilson for right now, but then maybe long-term, Kyle McCord. Hey, I like McCord. The more I watch Kyle McCord, and shout out to Mace X, man, he puts out some good content out there. He ranked Kyle McCord at number 3 for his quarterbacks. I love it, man. I thought that was a great ranking. I think McCord, if he can clean up some of those decision-making and when you deal with a little more pressure around you, get a little more comfortable with that, if there's anybody that's going to hone you out of that, I think Pete Carroll can do a great job with that. Get yourself that franchise quarterback, hopefully here, or at least a shot, okay? And if you miss, you miss. You can line up next year and take a first-round quarterback. Pete Carroll's not going to be in any rush, right? When you bring in Pete Carroll, they're going to say, hey, we're going to give you the keys. This is not a one-and-done scenario. Jack Kaiser of Notre Dame, he had a great week, picking off Milroe at least once. I know he had like 2 interceptions in the week. I'm not sure if the second one was from Milroe as well, but he looked good throughout the process, practices, everything, the game, you name it. Jack Kaiser was a beast. So, yeah. I mean, in terms of the game, I didn't watch the game, but I watched some of the highlights in terms of the Jaxson Dart and the Milroe, some of that stuff. So I was able to see guys like Landon Jackson going off and some guys struggling, Carson Vincent, etc. Jack Kaiser always making plays there for them. So, yeah, we get a linebacker. If they end up losing Robert Spillane, I think you plug him in there, at least give you competition with Tommy Eichenberg. On to the Jets, Jets. And I can't wait for AG, man, and this team. Hopefully, I know I always get hyped up, and then it's like 2 weeks go by. Oh, it's not so good, but hey, we got this, man. We're going to get Mason Graham here, interior rusher from Michigan, the Wolverine. I like Mason Graham still as the number 1 DT, but don't be surprised if Walter Nolan starts even getting pushed into that range where he could go above Mason Graham. Athletically speaking wise, he has more upside. I think Mason Graham is a floor guy. I don't think he's got the high-end traits of a Quentin Williams or, pass pros like Jalen Carter, but he's a very good player. He's a high-floor guy, as I was mentioning, and you pair him up with Quentin Williams, that's a great 1-2 punch. I also do love the idea of going Will Campbell or Josh Connolly, someone like that to be that bookend tackle with Olu Fashanu. As a Jets fan, it's just kind of one of those things I've been looking for years. You know what I'm going to do it, though, here in the second round with Emory Jones, who looked great, and he reboosted his draft stock after a rough season. He looked in control this week. He looked lighter on his feet, and his hands were way better to his punch, man. He looked out of his kick sets like he looked like a different player. He looked so comfortable this week. I'm very, very excited with Emory Jones and that reemergence, and he could even rise back up into the first round. I mean, this is a guy that has a powerful punch, and if he's showing off more athleticism and better kick slide like that, I mean, I think he could easily go in the first round in this tackle class. Elijah Arroyo from Miami, the talk of the town. There are still some things you have to think about with Arroyo, so that's why I don't have him quite second round at the moment. The injury history is going to have to get vetted out, okay? It's serious. It's kind of like a one-year wonder scenario, but the talent is there with Arroyo, and I think he could be maybe the next David Njoku type of player. Like, that's who he gives me a little bit of vibes of. Really, really good. He showed off that route running ability and separation as well, and solid hands. He did have a couple of drops in the one-on-one. Overall, looked really good at Senior Bowl, lighting it up. Dante Trader also looked very good. The Maryland safety, a missile. Maybe not the craziest athletic guy, but he's explosive. He comes downhill, and he can make plays too in coverage. Aaron Rodgers returns. By the way, that was our free agent move here, so Aaron Rodgers is back. I think it's better than the alternatives right now. And Rodgers, hey, maybe AG can restabilize some things. On to the Carolina Panthers now, and I'm going James Pierce Jr. I know the top of the town's Mike Green. He's going to go off the board very soon as well. It is neck and neck between Pierce and Mike Green. I think Pierce still has a little bit more upside than Mike Green. Mike Green is a better prospect, I think, as of right now, overall. Pierce, with that length and that athleticism, it's really good stuff, man. And if you can develop him a little bit more, and the Carolina Panthers, yeah, of course, I'm looking for impact players right now, but I'm also thinking about the future, and Mike Green would be a great pick too. So no matter what, you can't really go wrong in my view. Get one of those top pass rushers who's available on the board. James Pierce Jr., I really think can do that. Just get a little stronger. Love to see him get up to like 250 at the Senior Bowl of good weight. Xavier Restrepo, Miami wide receiver, he just checked off every box. Yeah, he's not the most athletic guy. We knew that going into it, but he catches the football. He is a smooth route runner. He creates enough space when it's important, right? He has that break quickness that is more important than just straight out speed. He knows how to get open. He knows how to create separation. He's going to be a reliable target for Bryce Young as that long-term, like Adam Thielen replacement for them. Sebastian Castro, safety from Iowa, also looked good. He looked good manning up one-on-one. He doesn't have the lateral twitch, but he's explosive, and he put up one of the faster GPS times as well, which I was kind of surprised by, but he showed off some speed. And as I talked about coverage ability, we knew the instincts were, for me personally, watching him at Iowa, he is so instinctual. He plays kind of like a hybrid linebacker safety. He'll play more of a traditional safety at the next level just because of that speed, I think. And that's fine. They need safety help. Charles Grant and then Antoine Powell-Ryland going to finish off this draft, add some developmental swing tackle for them. They need some more depth at the tackle position. So that's really what this is. Taylor Moton is also a free agent after 2025. I'm not saying you let him go, but you need to at least add some more developmental tackle help into the room. And he could even play swing on the interior if need be. And then Ryland is going to give them some more. Look, I want to double dip. I want to make sure we have as many pass rushers coming into this Carolina Panther team. It was the worst pass rush arguably in the league, so they need to make sure they address it. On to the New Orleans Saints, and they're going to be new here in a minute with a new coach. I am very, very curious to see who they're going to end up hiring, but by all means, it looks like it's going to be Kellen Moore from the Philadelphia Eagles, and that seems like a solid hire. And why not go pair him up with a Shedeur Sanders? You know, Dallas has been talking about Shedeur Sanders. It won't be Kellen Moore. Obviously, not with the Dallas Cowboys anymore, but he's saying, hey, Shedeur Sanders, I can go work with that guy. And that's what I'm doing here, all right? It's a little bit of a change up, and I think it's a real possibility. Everybody keeps going on the Vegas to Shedeur Sanders, as I talked about earlier, myself included. And in the draft, it seems like it always something else happens. So what if Shedeur Sanders ends up here for the Saints? They could move on from Derek Carr at some point very, very soon, and they could get out of the contract right now if they decided to post June 1st him. I just think that they really have to think about the quarterback of the future, and Shedeur Sanders would make a lot of sense in my opinion. Jack Bech, let's go add a weapon for him, and Bech looked great through all the Day one, he was a little slow starting out there in my opinion, but then day two, day three, the Senior Bowl, MVP, I mean, what else is there to say? Jack Bech, he creates enough separation for himself. He's good on those crossers, especially because he's a physical nightmare as well to deal with, those one-on-one balls. He can come back and make a play to the football, knows how to locate and track. Yeah, love Jack Bech. They need a big target on the outside to go with Olave and Shaheed. You get Landon Jackson, who looked great in the Senior Bowl. As I talked about earlier, I didn't actually watch the full Senior Bowl. I was at work, but Landon Jackson, I was able to watch like Jaxson Dart and Jalen Milroe, all of their throws. And one guy I couldn't help but notice making plays, Landon Jackson in the game. And also day three, he looked good. Day one and day two, he looked rough. He was lower down my board significantly, and then he really improved. And, hey, an improvement's important. You got to get better. It's not always, you don't always just come out firing, right? You're not always a Walter Nolan type of guy that's going to come out on day one and be automatic, and stuff like that. I love the improvement that he made throughout the week. Gunnar Helm, going to give them a tight end to develop there. Foster Moreau as a free agent, I believe. You got Juwan Johnson's a free agent. Yeah, you still have Taysom Hill under contract, but he's under for one more season. John Williams from Cincinnati played left tackle there, but I think he moves inside to guard for them at the next level. Just maybe doesn't have the crazy size, even though he has good arm length, but he is on the shorter side to play tackle, and that did show up on the one-on-ones at the Shrine Bowl. However, I think he'd be a really good developmental guy. CJ West looked great at the Shrine Bowl, man. He showed some pass rushing upside as well. Let's go Hoosiers, man. I graduated as IU a Hoosier alumni, so I got to shout out Hoosier anytime I get a chance. You go get yourself to pair somebody with Brian Brzee on the interior. And we also signed Morgan Moses to get some more savability at the right tackle position. That allows Trevor Penny, if you want, you can move him inside as well. On to the Chicago Bears. And the Bears, we're adding the Green Machine. Let's go. I love Mike Green, somebody I could not pass up for the Bears at this point. I'm like, you know what? We signed Trey Smith in this case scenario in free agency. Let's just go BPA, man. And I get there's some good offensive linemen still on the board right now. You could go get Will Campbell, and that would be a really good pick too. And I really did consider that. Mike Green, you get him off the edge. You pair him along with Montez Sweat, Austin Booker. That's your long run pairing there. Now, I mean, DeMarcus Walker's been really good, but he's going to a contract year. Mike Green and Marshall bringing that ever a pass rushing menace to that Bears defensive front. We get Tyler Booker in the second round. You put him at left guard, Trey Smith at right guard. The center position, you'd have to figure out. Maybe you sign somebody on the cheap and free agency, and then you do something with your early day three pick that you have. Well, I mean, or their fifth round picks that they have. So, yeah, I mean, that's really what I'd be looking at here. So that's my only thing maybe you could push back on is what about the center position? Maybe bring back Coleman Shelton. You could try to figure something out there. Travion Henderson, shot out of a cannon. Henderson, he is so electric. I'm a huge fan of Henderson. He's my number 2 running back in this draft class. I think when he gets to the pros, he's going to be way better than he was in college even. And he was great in college. It's just kind of with the rotation that they had with Judkins, it makes it a little bit challenging sometimes because the other guys like Amari Hampton and Caleb Johnson were workhorses, and they showed off that. And those are good players as well. But Henderson will be the electricity. Even though they've already got electricity with Swift, but you got Roshan Johnson was your power element. Henderson, you bring another back in here with some electricity for Ben Johnson. Billy Bowman Jr., the Oklahoma safety, he looked great at the Senior Bowl. He showed off why he was talked about as possibly even being a first-round prospect in the summer scouting. And I thought this guy certainly rose up the board after the Senior Bowl. Go ahead and find yourself another safety in the room. See what Jaquan Brisker. I mean, granted, you could look at somewhere else, maybe like more or less a Sebastian Castro could be a possibility too if you're looking for more of that type of mold of guy. Billy Bowman Jr., though, has so much versatility. I'm not worried about just finding a Jaquan Brisker replacement. And you also have to think about it this way too, because their other safety and Kevin Byard is under contract for one more season, so they may have to even consider that at the long-term sort of position. So I'm just going with BPA safety-wise in this scenario. We go on to the 49ers here. A lot of picks, and I know in small writing I put re-sign Drake Greenlaw there. They got so many picks, I couldn't quite fit it in there, which is a good thing. Walter Nolan, though, great week. Day one, he came out shooting out of a cannon himself. He was so explosive off the line, nobody could handle this guy. So Walter Nolan comes in here. They're going to be looking for some youth on that interior. You got to think Malik Collins, 1 year left on his contract. Javon Hargrave, 1 year left on his contract. Kevin Gibbs, a free agent. So a lot of areas that they could look at adding some more help on that interior. Definitely going to be looking at that. Javon Hargrave's been a little injury prone too. So let's go ahead and add that juice on the interior. Marcus Bowe from Purdue. I love what he showed at the Senior Bowl. He was another guy that got better and better in the week as it progressed. Day one, little struggle. He wasn't bad or nothing, but day two looked better. Day three really got it going. And his hands need a little cleanup. I like his technique, like his hand usage, but his hand placement needs some work. He gets a little wide with his hand, so he can improve that. I think in certain schemes he can hang at tackle. Some are going to move him inside to guard or even center. And for the 49ers, though, I think they can use him as a tackle. It just needs to get a little stronger. I do think he has enough length and enough. The movement skills are certainly there with Marcus Bowe. Very good movement skills. Barrett Carter, speaking of movement skills, he's a really good mover. Dre Greenlaw back on maybe a 1 year deal. You bring in Barrett Carter, going to be that rotational guy. Give them that third linebacker who can be that understudy. They are getting a little bit older, right? Dre Greenlaw is getting a little bit older, coming off of 2 major injuries per se. Well, this year more of a lingering knee injury, so that's unfortunate. But yeah, let's go and add some more developmental help in that linebacking room with Barrett Carter. Darian Strong looked great at the Senior Bowl. Here's a guy that I feel like is getting underrated even after the Senior Bowl. Looked smooth. He really did look smooth. What was it, day 2, where he had a couple of catches against him, but besides that, he was just locked down throughout that process. Terrence Ferguson going to add another developmental tight end. They're thin at tight end. They'll sign some guys in free agency, but they need to at least add some more depth behind George Kittle, who's getting a little bit older now as well. And then we finish off the draft with 2 edge rushers. And we got Olafemi Oladejo from UCLA. He's going to be, he's the guy that came out of nowhere, really, for me personally. And he was a former linebacker. He showed off some speed off the edge, and he's got good size as well. He looks like your prototypical edge rusher there. Brennan Switson, a power edge rusher. So you're getting yourself 2 edge rushers to give you some more depth for the long haul, because Leonard Floyd going into the contract year, same thing with Yetur Gross-Matos. Need to get a little cheaper there. Drake Jackson quite hasn't worked out. So I want to make sure we build up that depth. By the Dallas Cowboys, and we're going to go add Tetairoa McMillan. Eric McMillan, as I like to call him, he's too good not to take at this point. And I think he adds a big-time playmaker for them. And what they were looking for with Jonathan Mingo, and I'm not saying that you should give up on Mingo or anything like that. You can still use him as a rotation and everything like that. But McMillan's going to be that guy, pairing it up to next to CeeDee Lamb. Xavier Watson in the second round. They need to look at the safety position for the future. I think there's a good chance Donovan Wilson or Malik Collins, one of those guys, they move on. And they've got some youth in there, but overall, I think they're going to have to add somebody. Add another playmaker. Watts would be like a Malik Hooker type of replacement there, in my opinion. Quishon Judkins going to be that nice lead back. They go back to the Ohio State University, going to add some thunder in there. Hopefully bring back Rico Dowdle as a change of pace guy or 1-2 punch with Judkins, and I think that would be really good. And they also re-signed Osa Odighizuwa. Maybe give him the tag in this scenario to help make sure you have a defense presence. You can sign a nose tackle too on the cheap and free agency. So I figured let's go ahead and go with this route, and we'll rock it for the Dallas Cowboys. Fins up, baby. We got Will Campbell here on that offensive line to keep their offensive line up, keep Tua up. Got to do it, man. Offensive line has to be the number one priority for this Dolphins team. They re-signed Javon Holland, also in the free agent signing period. Derek Harmon going to come into that interior, the defensive line, be a nice developmental 3-tech guy for their front. He can play a multitude of roles, too. I think he is one of the more versatile defensive tackles in this class. Is one of the things I will say with Derek Harmon. Has prototypical size as well. Lathan Ransom, safety from the Ohio State University, very, very solid throughout the entirety of his career. He's played everywhere, too, for them in that Buckeyes secondary. He even played a little linebacker, too. Good, solid player. You know you're getting a kind of reliable number 2 type of safety. I don't think he has the elite athleticism, but he certainly has solid instincts. And then with their 4th-round picks, we're going Elijah Hazel and also Orlando Gadsden. And yes, you got Gadsden keeping the lineage, keeping him going back to Miami here with his dad. Makes a ton of sense. You get a Jonnu Smith developmental guy. With Elijah Hazel, this is a guy that looked great at this East-West Shrine Bowl. He develops for them. And he's probably going to be more of a slot guy, and I'm fine with that. Like, he's got toughness there and a good size as well. And he was really sticky in coverage versus all the DBs or the wide receivers he went up against. So you get a little more depth behind Kader Coho. They certainly could use that. He is a free agent. He's a restricted guy. Should be able to bring him back on the cheap. Anyway, I want to make sure we add some more cornerback depth in general because they need it with some injuries that they've had. On the Indianapolis Colts, and I know. This is where it's uncreative here. Tyler Warren, but he's just such a good prospect. He really is. I think Tyler Warren may end up going top 10 when it's all said and done. And the Indianapolis Colts need a clear-cut tight end. He is going to be this team's number 1 tight end right from the get-go. Shane Steichen loves to use 2 tight end sets as well. And especially with the identity of this football team, with Anthony Richardson, Jonathan Taylor, JT, let's make sure we have a beast of a tight end in the room. Jahdae Barron, Texas, hook 'em horns. Let's add a playmaker in the back end. Hey, he could play safety. He could play cornerback. He gives you a multitude of roles, like Kenny Clark. And that's what they need another playmaker besides Kenny Clark in that secondary. I know they got some guys. They've got some youth on there, too, to watch out for. Of course, Juju Brent's coming back. You got some good play from this season, from guys like Samuel Warmack and Jalen Jones. They could still use another beast, though, in that secondary, whether it's safety, whether it's a corner. Jahdae Barron's going to really help fill some void into that secondary. Fill some help up, you know what I mean? The tongue's all twisted out here. Carson Swissinger, though, the UCLA Bear, the Golden Bear. He's going to be that linebacker of the future to pair up along with Jair Franklin. And I think Schwessenzer might even go earlier than this, depending on how he tested the combine. His tape is phenomenal, and his movement skills are exceptional. He can blitz, he can get after the quarterback in a hurry, and he can also drop back in coverage, and he feels very comfortable in that with his instincts. Dylan Sampson at Tennessee, running back, this is exactly what they need. They've still been looking really for the long term for their Naheem Hines replacement. Hopefully this can be the guy, Dylan Sampson, give you that speed, that explosion to go along with JT in the running back room. On to the Atlanta Falcons. I am doing something different here. I signed Chase Young in free agency. Jeff Ulbricht's like, hey, enough's enough. Let's go get an established pass rusher here. They do that. And then he goes out and get Ben Morrison, the cornerback from Notre Dame, to just get a beastly secondary going here. A.J. Terrell, Ben Morrison on the outside. Oh, cooking all day. You bring back Mike Hughes. He has versatility. He can play in the slot. I'm rolling with that. I feel good about that secondary. And obviously the edge position, we had a Nick Scorton too in the second round. So now you're rolling with Arnold Ebiketie, Chase Young, and Nick Scorton as your edge rushing duo of the long haul. And then finally, Jonah Monheim, safety, USC. He had a multitude. He played everywhere, really, for the USC Trojan offensive line. And he's going to be their long-term center. If you don't bring back Drew Dahlman, in this case scenario, we let him go. Maybe they sign somebody on the cheap to be a one-year prove-it type of scenario. But Monheim, he had a rough day 3. However, I thought his day 1 and day 2 were really good. Just needs to get a little stronger. But the years in Cardinals now, and we're starting off with Mikael Williams, the edge rusher from Georgia. And I totally understand. It's like, you got to balance. Do you go with traits? Do you go with production and all those sort of things? How do you value Mikael Williams? He's a really good football player. Now, is he a polished prospect? Is he going to come out of the gates and 10-sack guy? Probably not. You never know, of course. But they need more edge talent, and I do think the traits, it's a matter of time before he gets there, right? As long as the work ethic's there, as long as those intangibles check off, I totally understand why you're gonna see this guy go top 20. It's just the way it is in the NFL, the traits and the talent. The guy moved up and down the defensive line. And that's another reason why the pressure rate isn't as high as some of these other guys like James Pierce Jr. or Mike Green, because he was also playing at times up in the nose position, but he played a lot at like a 4-eye, 5-tech for that Georgia defensive line. So he didn't get a lot of true one-on-one pass rushing reps as much as some of those other guys did. And even when he did, he showed some rawness, right? He needs to do better with his pass rush moves. So there's that. But they get another edge rusher here. And then on day 2, we get a tackle in Anthony Belton. He could also be a guard at the long haul, but I figure you bring back Will Hernandez, put him at right guard. Isaiah Adams, he was playing right guard for them, but he can play on the left side. That's what he did at Illinois. So I'm not like super worried about that. Those would be your two starting guards going into the next season. Anthony Belton could either compete long haul at that right guard position or at least give you some more competition at that right tackle position. Jonah Williams, the uncertainty there, he's going to the contract year. Injury risk is very unknown at this point. I'm not sure how serious that end of the season knee injury was, so he could be out for a little bit of time. Who knows? Yes, you did draft Christian Jones. Maybe he develops in the right tackle, 5th-round pick. Possibly. You just never know. I think we need to see a little bit more before I feel comfortable with that. Then I go Alfred Collins here in the 3rd round. Going to be a good one-tech, nose tackle for them. That's really what he is good at. He is so strong at the point of attack. He looks like a physical specimen. He doesn't really have the pass rushing chops, at least consistently. Like, there will be times where it's like, oh my goodness, where'd that come from? And if you can hone more of that, dude, then that's really crazy. But he can be that nose tackle in there. Roy Lopez, you got those rotation there. Torrey Horton going to finish off this draft. Going to add another speedster on the outside. Give Marvin Harrison, like, you need to make sure you got Marvin Harrison, of course, Maserati Marv. You have Michael Wilson going into your number 3 now. Now Torrey Horton's going to be that dynamic guy that can play inside out. And obviously Maserati Marv can play inside out too. So can Michael Wilson. Like, it gives you a lot of different skill sets, but Horton's going to be more your deep threat guy with his speed. On to I just ate my bagels in Cincinnati. We're going to go and take that ever interesting polarizing edge rusher that everybody's talking about right now. Shemar Stewart, that's who. And I get it. I love the traits of Shemar Stewart as well. Now, I do think people need to push the pause button just a little bit. I think the tape is still very, very questionable, very, very raw. However, the traits are very tantalizing. You do not find guys that are 6'5", 280 that move like he does. He moves like a 240-pound, 250-pound edge rusher, but has the size and length and wingspan of a massive guy. Like, he is just a unique athlete that will have production at the next level. Now, there are some things with him, and finishing is going to come up multiple times with him, and that is a concern. Like, I don't care. You can get pressures all you want, but if you're not getting to the quarterback and finishing on the play consistently, that is a sign. Like, that is something that I take into account, right? You need to finish. That is a big part of it. And I think that's something he's going to have to really show more of, and why they'll have him mocked a little higher than this. I think 17 is a good value for Shemar Stewart, solid. And for the Cincinnati Bengals, I almost said Cleveland Browns, I'm sorry, but for the Cincinnati Bengals, it's all those bagels, man. I am telling you, everything bagels, the blueberry bagels, those are dope, actually. But going back to the mock draft, Stewart gives you another edge rusher in here. And in this case scenario, we signed Tevin Jenkins, coming in, left guard upgrade for them. And then at right guard, we're going to draft somebody here with Miles Frazier in a little bit to be that right guard of the future behind Alex Kappa for one more season. He's got one more year left on his contract. I mean, Ted Karras is under contract for one more season as well. And we don't have to do anything like that right now. I do like Will Lee a lot from Miami, who they got in the 7th round last year. And that's why I didn't go center just yet, because I feel like, hey, let's give him some time to develop. But Frazier looked great at the Senior Bowl, and you could be that long-term right guard. So you get Jenkins on a couple-year extension or a couple-year contract. Maybe it's time that Duke Tolman and this Bengals organization gets a little more aggressive. Kevin Winston Jr. from Penn State, they get a safety to be able to develop here. It hasn't quite worked out with Geno Stone, at least at this moment. He did play a little bit better at the end of the season. Nonetheless, they still need to look at adding some more depth in that back end, adding some more help with at least competing with Jordan Battle. And I think Winston is a really high floor prospect too, coming out of Penn State. He's got the range. He's got every intangible you look for from what I hear. And he's also a guy that has great tackling prowess and solid length for the position and size. And then we got Jeffrey Bassett to finish. I'm going out of order here, but Bassett to finish up the draft, the linebacker here from Oregon. He looked great at the Senior Bowl as well. I could see him going higher than this, but he is a good athlete. He did struggle at times on the one-on-ones versus running backs, but he showed competitiveness, especially in the practice drills. He was phenomenal. Like, he was the guy sticking out over and over and over again. So Jermaine Pratt going into the last year of his contract, I think it makes sense to get a nice developmental guy. Plus, Akeem Davis-Gaither is a free agent this offseason as well. On the Seattle Seahawks, and they're going Gray Zabel, the offensive lineman from North Dakota State. Oh my goodness, Zabel, the other talk of the town. He was just phenomenal. I didn't see him really lose throughout the week. Man, he's got some powerful arms, powerful grip strength, good hands. Really impressed with his lateral agility. He just didn't get beat. So day 3 was probably his worst day if I had to give you, out of all 3 of the days of practices. But day 1, day 2, he was dominant. Day 3 was still very good. He was just the best offensive lineman out there. And Seattle, you probably either center or guard, whether it's Ola Oluwatimi getting more competition there. You need to add upgrade for Anthony Bradford. I mean, we'll see if Christian Haynes comes along. No matter what, they need help. They really do. So let's go add some help on that offensive line. Leighton Thomas is also a free agent. Jared Ivey, give me an IV, baby, because he was unbelievable. He was really good on this guy, you go back to his film, he can rush on the interior, can rush off the edge. He's super powerful, got great punch and contact, and he showed off some cat-like quickness for a guy like his size. He adds that Draymond Jones replacement is what I'm kind of thinking here with this one. Then you got Tez Johnson. He's undersized, absolutely. But if you're looking for like a little Tyler Lockett, I mean, they're different players, don't get me wrong. But Tez Johnson gives you some elusiveness at that size profile. Get a list of a developmental guy for sure. And he's so difficult to cover one-on-one. You got your big physical beast in DK Metcalf. You got your route runner and nuanced guy, Jackson Smith-Njigba. Now you go ahead and a little gadget guy, Tez Johnson. And then finally, Quinn Ewers. We're going to finish this up here with a quarterback. And we also signed Aaron Banks to help at least get him going right away, right? And then Zabel maybe ends up playing center for them or playing right guard, depending on how things work out with Christian Haynes and whatnot. But to make sure we bolster that offensive line. So I wanted to at least add somebody in free agency there. Tez Johnson, Quinn Ewers. And we can talk about with Quinn Ewers, just trying to add a developmental quarterback. He's got the traits. He's got some talent. His pocket presence definitely a concern there, and there's some things with his decision-making, but I'm going to take a chance on Ewers in the 4th round. I thought he was worth it at this point. At least can be a good backup for them. Give him like a Drew Lock backup for sure, something like that, right? How about them Bucks, though? Where are the cannons going off? They're right here. That's where Tampa Bay. We're going with Donovan Ezeraku, the exploding cannon from Boston College. He is so good. If you go back on his film and watch those inside counter moves that he's able to win with, shades a la of Micah Parsons, different players, of course, but Donovan Ezeraku would be the exception. If he's on the board, I would consider taking him 100% because I still think he's underrated. He didn't have the greatest Senior Bowl, but he was good. Like, he was still very, very good. He had this one hop step against, was it Marcus Bowe? I forget who it was against. Actually, Josh Connolly, I think it was who he went up against on that one, but elite stuff, okay? There's not many guys that could pull that type of stuff off. And Donovan Ezeraku has the movement skills. He's got great length, too. He's got like 34-inch plus arms, which is like, dang, I'll take that all day. Then on day 2, I went and added a big playmaker into the room, Alec Ayumanor. And remember, you got to also think Jalen McMillan can play in the slot, can play on the outside. So I'm like not super worried about that. You got Mike Evans. You get Alec Ayumanor to be a vertical guy, at least early on. He can be that go ball winner. And you've seen what he did with Travis Hunter. I think that was a little overrated. I mean, don't get me wrong, Travis Hunter struggled in that game, but I do think people overrate that a little bit. And I'm not discredit against Alec Ayumanor because he had a one heck of a game in that one, and he's got the talent. Stanford's quarterback situation, you know what I'm saying? It's a conversation with Luther Burden, right? It's like, how high do you have to compensate a little bit for that. So Alec Ayumanor, you get him in here with Baker Mayfield, let those oatmeal bowls cooking and rolling. I like it all day there with Ayumanor. And then on with their 3rd round pick, you go Quincy Riley. He was just locked down there, and one-on-one, he was the best corner, I felt like, at the Senior Bowl in terms of just straight production, one-on-one, stopping dudes. Yeah, Azaria Thomas got a lot of the buzz and conversation, and, Dorian Strong I thought was excellent. There were some other guys. Maxwell Harrison, of course, got a lot of buzz, and he was really good. But Riley, to me, was probably the best corner one-on-one. He locked dudes down. And yeah, he doesn't have crazy size or anything like that, but man, he is physical enough. And you bring him in here as that guy to pair along in that secondary, or at least give them some depth, because Jamel Dean could even be a possible cut candidate too for them. So, it's definitely something and you have to keep an eye out on. But they need some more secondary help in general. And then finally, we got Nick Martin. I really fell back in love with Nick Martin. And it's just kind of like, hey, I really liked him in the offseason, and when I saw him at the Senior Bowl, I'm like, okay, I remember that from Nick Martin. He looks really, really good. He's a little bit undersized, of course, but he can hang. He really can. He plays with that physical demeanor. He is tough. He is tough as nails, and that's what I want from a linebacker. I want a guy who's just not afraid of nothing, and I think Nick Martin brings that. Him and Jack Kaiser, I just loved, it was fun to watch. And then Levante David returns, so at least gives you Levante David back. Nick Martin can give you some time to develop into there, get fully healthy and whatnot. On to the Denver Broncos here, and they got Colston Loveland, the other tight end, right? I mean, you talk about Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland's a really good player as well, and you get a playmaker in that tight end room. They desperately need it. And Sean Payton, he knows how to use tight ends, and they just haven't really had a number one guy. Loveland's going to give him a number one guy. And we also signed Chris Godwin, too. We just saw the Bucs draft. oh, we just stole a buck right here. Chris Godwin going to elevate the wide receiving room. They've got a lot of guys who are able to be a playmaker for them, but you add an established playmaker in here. You've got Sutton, of course, but I think Godwin could elevate the room even more, too, even coming off injury. Maybe give him like a 2-year deal and help out that for Bo Nix. And then we got Deone Walker, big-time interior player. It's tough to project where Deone Walker's going to go. I really don't know. Like, he didn't have a dominant Senior Bowl week, but he was good. Like, he had those moments where it's like, okay, I see the Kentucky helmet. I see him pushing Jonah Monheim 10 yards back into the backfield or something like that. Like, okay, check, right? He has those reps of utter dominance. It was Clay Webb, not Jonah Monheim, I believe. I think it was Clay Webb. Don't quote me on that. I think it was Clay Webb because he was playing center, and I think he's more of a guard anyway. And Clay Webb's a really good player, too. I like him a lot. But going back to Deone Walker, you put him on that interior, and they need to add some more players because DJ Jones, a free agent. So who's going to be that guy next to Zach Allen on that interior? And then you got Caleb Johnson and Dan Jackson. Johnson, really good runner there at Iowa. He's going to be that lead runner for them. They need to add somebody into that room. I mean, you got Jaleel McLaughlin, good rotational guy, just doesn't really have that full workhorse ability. We'll see about Audric Estime. I think he can be a good rotational power back, but I think Johnson can be that full workhorse between the tackles guy. Dan Jackson, Georgia safety, very came out of nowhere for me, but very impressive week. He was able to cover one-on-one and show some really good movement skills. So he's a guy, I think, you wonder, is he a one-year type of dude? But man, I thought he looked very good and made some big-time money for him at the Senior Bowl process. They could use a guy to at least compete with PJ Locke in the secondary. So I wanted to make sure we had playmakers for Bo Nix. We had a good running engine into the room. We get some more interior depth and then a safety develop in that room besides Brandon Jones. Pittsburgh Steelers, yes, Jalen Milroe, row your boat, Jalen Milroe, let's go. But I know you're saying, oh my goodness, this guy's so inaccurate. He's got tiny hands. How is this going to work for Pittsburgh? I'm telling you how it's going to work. He can develop. And hopefully, right? I mean, and yes, there are arguments because you got Kenny Pickett and he had smaller hands too. But look, Joe Burrow has smaller hands and he's able to work in the colder environments. I think everybody's a little bit different. Ultimately, it's going to depend on how they develop him. So we'll see about Jalen Milroe. I've heard nothing but good things about his work ethic and his demeanor and all those things. He's a locker room guy. There's a lot of things that go into account with a quarterback. But he at least can bring that running, that athleticism to the table. Him and Justin Fields, just Arthur Smith is just licking at the chops right now. He's foaming. He's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be able to just create this crazy run game. You get Devin Neal, who maybe can, be a nice 1-2 punch with Jalen Warren there. We get Matthew Golden in the first round. Hey, I'm not even talking about our first round pick here yet, but Matthew Golden going to be a golden receiver for this offense, puns intended. Anyway, get him up with George Pickens and then Roman Wilson coming back. Darius Alexander had a great Senior Bowl, so athletic, and he's long too. He's got tremendous arm length, so he's a guy that's going to be a nice little replacement there on that interior if you end up losing out on Larry Ogunjobi. And final pick was Devin Neal to be a nice running back combination, as I talked about with Jalen Warren. Electricity charge, man. Ooh, we're taking on here to the Los Angeles Chargers, the Bolts, baby. I love that. There's something about the Chargers and their logo. It's one of my favorites. But Kenneth Grant is going to be a nice lightning bolt. The Wolverine, I have to go with one Michigan Wolverine. I'm sorry. It just is what it is. Kenneth Grant, lock him up on that interior. Yeah, Poona Ford, I expect him to be back. But they still need more help on there, right? So let's go ahead and add some more help. I mean, Teair Tart's back. Maybe he isn't. I don't know. There's still some uncertainty there. If Teair Tart isn't back, then Kenneth Grant, you plug him right in there. He's going to be a immediate help for them on that interior. Harold Fanning Jr., Bowling Green tight end. Yeah, maybe, blocking could be a bit of an issue, and you could say that in Harbaugh's scheme, they're going to want, so Greg Roman, he might want more of a blocker. But, hey, they can work it out. I think Harold Fanning, just best player available at this point at 55. He didn't have a wow Senior Bowl, but he's going to definitely be, I think, really good in pads in the NFL level. If nothing else, like Isaiah Likely 2.0 for this Charger team, getting Herbert a weapon. Then we get into JT Tuimoloau and Seth McLaughlin, two Ohio State cats. Tuimoloau he dropped. Sometimes players drop even though they shouldn't drop. Tuimoloau should go on round 2, but he fell to round 3 in this case scenario. I'm trying to highlight some other players, and that's possible. That's why it happened. But Tuimoloau, great football player. Don't expect him to be here, I'll be honest. Maybe he is, because he's not that crazy athlete or nothing. So he's probably going to be more of like a floor number 2 edge rusher when he gets to the NFL level. So it's like, how high do you draft that when you have other guys possibly with more upside? So I totally get that. But Tuimoloau, the best coverage edge rusher too, I feel like, in this draft. And then you got Seth McLaughlin, center, going to develop in there. And they're going to need to look at that center position for the future, right? Even if you bring back Bradley Boozman, they're going to need to add somebody in there. And I don't know if, they're going to bring back Bradley Boozman either. So we'll see what they do. Maybe they bring in like a Ryan Kelly type. They're going to need to add some help, though, at that center position. So McLaughlin can definitely do that. And then, I think bring back Khalil Mack is ever important, too, for their defensive line. Just talking about Ryan Kelly, but the Green Bay Packers, we signed Ryan Kelly in free agency. We did draft the center, Marcus Weir, at the end here at Montana State. He was great in the Shrine Bowl. Looked really good. He showed off incredible movement skills and also hung out with his power, too. Like, he didn't get, dominated or anything like that, which is what I was looking for with him. And when coming from a small school, you want to see how they go up against NFL competition. He held his own, and not just held his own, he took it to him. And you go, Jose, we're going backwards. Hey, I've been going forward all the time. I want to go backwards in this one. And Hosea Stewart, Jaden Higgins, your day 2 picks here with some talent. Jaden Higgins, going to be another big wide receiver, can be a vertical guy as well. Showed off some of that at the Senior Bowl. Good release package. They need some more help, especially with Christian Watson being injured for possibly the entirety of the season next year. And then Hosea Stewart, Michigan Wolverine, going to come in and add some more edge presence, some speed off the edge, and high motor ability. Final for their first pick is Siobhan Revel Jr., East Carolina cornerback. In this case scenario, it depends. We'll see what Jair Alexander does, but he could definitely be on the way out. So if he is on the way out, you're going to have to draft somebody, I would imagine, early. So I could see them drafting somebody in the first round, second round, at minimum third round, just depending on what they do. But if they let go of Jair Alexander, then they'll sign somebody in free agency. No matter what, I expect them to bring somebody. And I still feel like Revel, really good add here in the first round with his tools and traits for Jeff Hafley. All right, we'll go back in order here for the Minnesota Vikings. Skull, skull, skull. You know I got to do it, man. I love the Skull Nation. And Kelvin Banks Jr. fell. Some of the tackles in this class fell just because I was highlighting some of these edge rushers. I think that Kelvin Banks Jr. is going to move inside to guard at the next level, which I'm totally fine doing that, sticking him there. I think he'll be a great addition for the Vikings. They need help on that interior. Blake Brendel, more of a depth player, in my opinion. We'll see if they decide to bring back Dalton Reisner. I don't think he'd be super expensive. I'd like to bring him back. That's fine. But Ed Ingram, you could look at an upgrade there anyway. So Banks, move him inside to guard. Hey, he could be the long-term right tackle for Brian O'Neill, too. So it gives you some help in general and swing tackle capability if you have some injuries. Christian Darrisaw, obviously, when he went down, they had to make a trade for Cam Robinson. And final pick, Kobe Bryant looked great in the East-West Shrine Bowl. Even though he was slim at 171 he played extremely physical. So I think that Brian Flores can work with that. They really do. He's a playmaker through and through, going to give them some more cornerback depth. We brought back Byron Murphy as well, so he gives you inside-out versatility. Kobe Bryant can give you some more help in the secondary, though. We also signed Milton Williams. Fun little ad here. I thought that was a cool one. You pair him along with Harrison Phillips. That'd be a one-force wrecking machine on that interior for sure. Mecca. That's what I'm saying right now for the Houston Texans. Emeka Egbuka coming into town with C.J. Stroud. Yeah, there's some familiarity there. They go back to the Ohio State University. They got Cade Stover last year. Now they go get Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver, who's going to come in, be an immediate presence. And yes, he may not be this dominant, true number 1 wide receiver. He knows how to get open. He's a solid athlete. He's got solid size. He run blocks his butt off. And yeah, he just checks off the boxes. And with Tank Dell, the injury question, he may be out for the entirety of the season, unfortunately. And Stephon Diggs being a free agent coming off an ACL injury, they need to add another playmaker in here. At times, this was their biggest Achilles heel, in my opinion. C.J. Stroud holding onto the ball because playmakers aren't getting open. So you could double cover Nico Collins and got nobody else to get open, then that's a problem. So let's go get Emeka Egbuka. Let's solidify that receiving room. Nick Emanwari, South Carolina safety / hybrid linebacker, however you want to deploy this guy. Houston would be just an ultimate chess piece for them. And they need to look at the safety position for the future anyway. Jamie Ward's going to be a free agent in 2026. He could even be a cut candidate as well. And the reasoning why, he's been injured a lot, and that's been a problem. So you can't really expect him to play a full season at this point. So I want to make sure we add a safety. But they need help covering tight ends. You go against Travis Kelce's, you go up against these tight ends, these elite tight ends, and covering the middle of the field, like that has been a problem for this Houston Texans team watching their game. So we need to make sure we add in somebody there at the safety position. Then we add in a Joshua Farmer. He is so strong. He's a dominant power rusher. To see him put together pass rush moves, like that was really the thing from, if he would have done more pass rushing things at the Senior Bowl, we'd be talking about this guy as a second round pick, but that's really what's holding me back from putting him in the second round at this moment. However, you talk about the athleticism, oh, it's there. You talk about the strength profile, oh, it's there. You know what I mean? So let's go ahead and add another guy into DeMeco Ryans' scheme on that interior of the front. And look, DeMeco Ryans, it seems like he doesn't like dudes that are huge or anything like that. It seems like he likes guys like kind of in that mid-range, like around the 6'2", 310-pound range, guys that can hold the point of attack, can add some pass rushing presence and some bull rushing ability on that interior. Luke Kandra, Cincinnati, offensive lineman, played right guard at Cincinnati, going to be a nice developmental guy behind Shaq Mason for a season. They may even have cut him Shaq Mason after this season. So let's add some more help in here. We also added a Will Fries in free agency. So, hey, we added Will Fries. You get Luke Kandra, going to be a developmental guy in that interior. Could even play center for them. Kandra has that ability. He's got the athletic ability to do that. So, you know, Jaret Patterson, you got Juice Shrugs. I wanted to still make sure we add an offensive lineman just in case. Kandra, left guard, right guard, however you want to do that. Will Fries, let's shore up this offensive line once and for all. You have Titus Howard, you can keep him at right tackle. Blake Fisher be your swing tackle. Laramie Tansel, left tackle, obviously, over there. LA now, and the Rams. Let's bull ram it in with a cornerback prospect to finish up this defense. We get a stud in Isaiah Thomas from Florida State. He was a big talk at the Senior Bowl as well, mainly because a guy his size and his length profile, his movement skills are really, really good. I mean, he struggled versus covering guys like Tez Johnson and Kyle Williams and whatnot, but he shows the athletic profile, the maneuverability for a guy his size is really, really good. And obviously that length profile shows up to make plays on the ball, and especially on his film, I thought was excellent. And these one-on-one settings are tough, especially for guys like Isaiah Thomas. I think he's going to be a really, really good corner. Like, think of like a long-term Ahkello Witherspoon guy that they've been looking for in their secondary. And then with their day 2 picks, Ozzie Trapillo, Demetrius Knight Jr., Ty Felton. So Trapillo is going to be a swing tackle for them early on. He played right tackle at Boston College. And I will say, he kind of grew on me a little bit more. I watched him at the Senior Bowl, the one-on-one reps. He does stand a little high. I think he needs to sink his butt a little bit more and anchor a bit better. But I definitely has the talent, and I think he shows some pop and some hands there and be a good developmental guy. He's a solid athlete as well, but he certainly has the boom and can be a good right tackle behind Rob Havenstein. They definitely have to address some depth there, especially if you lose Alder. I mean, if you lose Alder Jackson, there's probably a first-round need, depending on what you do in free agency, of course. And then but in this case, we re-signed Aldrich Jackson, making sure covering my bases there. Demetrius Knight from South Carolina, he got lowered on my board a little bit. I just don't think he's going to be much of a cover guy. And that's okay, because the Rams don't really expect that from their linebackers a whole ton, even though I think they might want to add somebody there. Anyway, Knight fits what they're looking for, and I think he'd be a nice add with Omar Speights there to be that 1-2 punch. And he's just such a thumper, man. He's a great run defender guy. And then Ty Felton, Maryland, wide receiver, going to be that route runner, nuanced, maybe doesn't have crazy athleticism, but they find these guys later in the draft that come out of nowhere. And Felton, I think he was super smooth at the Senior Bowl. Didn't get a whole ton of attention, a whole ton of buzz, but he just, again, looked smooth. He was kind of like Jalen Royals to me. Like, both of those guys, they didn't do any wow moments. Jalen Noel also kind of was the same. They didn't do anything like crazy, but they just smooth. They caught the ball. They did what they needed to do. So I really like Ty Felton, especially at this value. On to the Baltimore Ravens, and I'm going to Josh Simmons, Ohio State University. As we see, these tackles are falling in this draft. Dude, Josh Conley's still on the board. But yeah, these tackles really good. Josh Simmons going to be the left tackle of the future. Ronnie Stanley, in this case scenario, ended up leaving in free agency. So we got Josh Simmons to be the heir apparent at left tackle spot. You plug him in right away. He could be in that long-term left tackle for Lamar Jackson, the blindside protector. Then we got TJ Sanders. I thought this was great value, and BPA going to come onto that defense line and be a good rotational guy with Broderick Washington on that interior defensive line. Matabuki, obviously, too, and Pierce and whatnot. There are no tackles. Anyway, Pierce and Travis Jones. So you have those guys, but you need another rusher on that interior. And then you got Savion Williams, the wide receiver from TCU. He is a very interesting prospect to evaluate. I'm still not 100% sure how I feel on Williams. Like, the athleticism is insane for a guy his size. He is very much he's just a very interesting prospect. Cordell Patterson, maybe? I don't know. Just a very unique prospect on how you're going to use this guy. But add some more size and athleticism into the room, another playmaker. And then you got Upton Stout. I think I'm going to probably mock Upton Stout higher my next mock draft. I am a huge fan of Upton Stout. I really like what he brings to the table. He showed physical toughness, especially for a guy his size. I mean, maybe at the next level, it's a little bit tougher for him, but I think he comes in, at least competes in the slot. Remember, Ardarius Washington has been playing at the safety position, and he's shown to be really solid at that safety position as well. But Upson Stout can come in, be another DB, dime packages early on, maybe be the long-term slot corner for them. And then Mitchell Evans going to come in here, be that developmental number 2 tight end for Isaiah Likely for the future, right? And Mark Andrews, I know he had the drop in the end zone for the 2-point conversion. Everyone's going to hate on that, but Mark Andrews is going to be in contract year. We'll see if they end up re-signing him. He's getting a little older now. So those are all things that they're going to have to consider a little bit. And then they also signed James Daniel on free agency to give them some guard help, put him in over at that right guard position, or at least compete there for sure. Makari, you got the Mountain, of course, at the right guard position. So we'll see how it all works out. Anyway, I think James Daniels from the Pittsburgh Steelers coming over here on like a 1-year prove-it deal would make a lot of sense. On to the Detroit Lions now. We're roaring in. We're getting Malachi Starks. Just adding another playmaker in that back. And now you're probably saying to yourself, wait a minute, G-Sling. Where are we going to put Malachi Starks? Good question, actually. But here's what you could do. Okay, so I think you could put Malachi Starks either in the slot or you could put Brian Branch back in the slot. Okay, so they're going to figure this out. Like you can never have an abundance of too many good safeties. You got Kirby as your deep guy. Malachi Starks would be a hybrid dude, a chess piece that you could line up and put him on guys depending on who you're going against. And same thing with Brian Branch. You have 2 jokers on your defense that are interchangeable pieces in your secondary. So I'm not worried about it. Like I just felt like at this point, the value on Malachi Starks is excellent. I do think Malachi Starks, like as a top 15 player in this draft, is tough for me. But at this point, this value in the 20s is excellent. And Malachi Starks, his athletic profile, his size, and his versatility is going to play at the next level. I love what it could bring for this Detroit Lions team. And then Jonas Abanaia, he was solid at the Senior Bowl. I definitely see him as a guard. After the Senior Bowl, it highlighted he needs to move inside, in my opinion. He came in big. I mean, he was 339 pounds, so he's definitely could end up losing like 10 pounds and try at tackle. It's definitely a possibility for him. Like, we'll see how it goes. But ultimately, I'm fine with it. You keep him, move him inside a guard. We lost Kevin Zeitler on free agency. Yes, you got Graham Glasgow coming back, but no matter what, they're going to need to upgrade that interior. And then David Walker, Central Arkansas, another guy who fell, and I can't pass him up at this point. He looked great at the Senior Bowl in terms of his power. He was the one guy that got Anthony Belton to push back, and he showed that bull rush. Now, and they want to see a little bit more than just a bull rush, right? You can't just always go down the middle of guys, especially at the next level. They're going to be able to toe up on that. But he looked really promising, and he obviously has insane production coming out of Central Arkansas. So I can't wait to see what he brings to the table here as your number 2 edge rusher for the long haul. Zadarius Smith, of course, being back still, but you bring him up with Aiden Hutchinson, Josh Pascal. I'm rolling with it. And then Jay Higgins, we go back to Iowa, get themselves a linebacker to pair along with Jack Campbell, the captain. Those 2 guys, man. And Higgins, hey, they know each other. Higgins has been there with Jack Campbell, so. And Higgins is super dependable with his IQ. He's an instinctual guy, exactly a Campbell dude. And you pair him up there, going to be nice understudy with Alexander Zaloni for a season. We also re-signed Carlton Davis. Ever important, business is not done yet. Keep Carlton Davis. He was so good in that secondary for the Lions. The Washington Commanders, and you can see my hype, Josh Connolly Jr. coming into the mix here. I'm a huge Josh Connolly Jr. fan. Yeah, maybe he didn't have the greatest Senior Bowl, but I still really came away impressed with Connolly. Yes, the anger, got to get stronger, got to get tougher, but he is a guy that has really good athleticism. He's got good punch and showed off the hand placement too. When he gets inside, it's game over. He can anchor down. He gets that hop step. So he's not a guy that's just going to consistently get bull rush. And he seems to learn from some of that stuff too. Like he's good with his learning on these guys. And remember, these one-on-one reps, you don't always just, it's tough. You know what I'm saying? You don't really have time to show off some of that recovery ability. You lose 1 rep and everybody's going to be on top of you. So Mike Green, it gets covered a lot. I still think Connolly is a really good player. I mean, he did lose a couple of reps too throughout the week. I think Darius Robinson got him. We saw one with Donovan Ezaraku. Overall, I'm still really like Connolly. And for Commanders, you figure it out. Whether he's right tackle, left tackle, you can get those conversations together. Get your best players on the, Coleman, if he goes over to right tackle, there's many things that they can do here to get their best offensive lineman. But let's protect Jaden Daniels going forward. Jihaad Campbell, linebacker, Alabama. Going to be a Dan Quinn special. He comes in here. I probably think he's going to be an off-the-ball linebacker at the next level, which is fine. They need an off-ball linebacker. Other than Frankie Louvu, they're going to need to find somebody else in there. Bobby Wagner, a free agent. They don't really have a whole ton of development right there, guys behind him. So we need to invest in it. Jihaad Campbell was a great value at this point. Another guy, I'm trying to highlight some of these other guys. Jihaad Campbell, really good football player. I like him a lot, and you can develop him either as an edge rusher or as an off-the-ball linebacker. I think he's got the traits to do either. I really do. You could use, no matter what, you need to get this guy in some sort of blitzing capacity role. Isaiah Bond from Texas, we're going to add some speed on the outside for Jaden Daniels, and he's good at those go balls. Well, Isaiah Bond going to be a deep threat. Make those defenses just have to worry about Jaden Daniels running the football, Isaiah Bond running vertically, and scary Terry McLaurin, of course, being a beast. He does everything. So I just think that adding that type of playmaker like Isaiah Bond would be a really cool addition. And we also signed Josh Sweat. We didn't get an edge rusher. Now, I talk about Jihaad Campbell could end up playing as a full-time edge rusher for this team. He has all the traits to do that. But Josh Sweat comes in free agency to pair along with Dorrance Armstrong. On to the Buffalo Bills here. And with their first pick, I'm going with Mr. Reliable, Tyleik Williams. He is a powerful force, and he can walk dudes back as a pass rusher consistently. He has that boom. He's got that pop. And then he's a great run defender, getting hands off of you. He's just a pop, Jackie Chan style, Cobra Kai. I think he's coming out with a new movie as well with Marshawn Lynch Beast Mode. I saw that preview. I'm like, what? What's this? Jackie Chan? Marshawn Lynch? Oh, it's a must watch. Anyway, I'll keep that on the radar. Prince Umaga-Yellen in round number 2, just adding more pass rush into the room. Get some more developmental guys. Von Miller's might be his last season with Buffalo. He could get moved to get a little cheaper there. Jalen Royals, as I talked about earlier with guys like Ty Felton and Jalen Noel, I thought that Jalen Royals looked extremely smooth. And I didn't expect him to come in at 210 pounds. But, man, he's rocked up. And he showed some power, too. See, he presses one guy, knocked him down to the ground, even though it was a penalty. But, man, that was like, oh, my gosh, this guy's insane. So he's got power. He's got some physicality that I like to see here at the Senior Bowl, and looked uber smooth in his routes. I thought his footwork was clean and crisp, caught pretty much everything as well. And then you got Zy Alexander, LSU cornerback. Going to add somebody here. We did sign Jermaine Sherwood. Now, they're going to have to sign somebody else at the cornerback position because we did kind of pass up on some of these cornerbacks. So that would be my one knock of this draft. But Zy Alexander, a really good football player. And I have not been able to watch any of his one-on-ones of the Shrine Bowl just yet. So I'll have to take a look and see how he looked. But I liked his tape a lot at LSU. And going back to La Tech, they produce good corners. Dylan Fairchild, here's a guy I have watched a lot of, and Fairchild's a guy that I'm a huge fan of. Left guard there at Georgia. Very powerful hands. He's a wrestler. He's got that background. He was a state champion wrestler in high school, and he shows that. He's a phone booth man, and he is not just he's got good athleticism, too. Now, he's more of a linear guy, I would say, but, his footwork's fine, and he can move laterally. So you get him in here to be a nice understudy, even though Edwards has been fantastic at that left guard position. They could still add somebody. He's going to a contract year. On to the Philadelphia Eagles here, and with their first pick, Jalen Walker. I know. It's another one of those. It's like, all right, write it up, chalk it up for a Howie Roseman pick. It just seems like it's a dream come true. It's a Georgia Bulldog as well, so there's that. He can develop, be another Walter Nolan understudy for this football team, and then we go on to Cameron Williams, tackle, Texas. He's going to be a nice understudy for Lane Johnson for a season or two. He is a raw prospect, but he's got the physical traits that they look for. And it's a Howie Roseman, Jeff Stoutland University special right here. So, boom, lock him in. And then we go on to Mason Taylor. He's going to be a great Dallas Goedert. He kind of has some of those physical traits of Dallas Goedert as well. And certainly can line up and block. He's a tough-nosed guy in that department. He made a couple of nice catches at the Senior Bowl, on some simple routes, but had a nice one-handed catch showing off some good hands. And then you got Aeneas Peoples from Virginia Pebbles from Virginia Tech. We'll call him Pebbles from now on. Pebbles Flintstone. Too many Flintstones. I watch Flintstones all the time, but Peoples is going to be a nice interior rusher for them if they lose Milton Williams. In this case scenario, I had them losing Milton Williams. I still think they're going to be in solid positioning. Because they've got a guy, Moro Ojimo, that I like a ton out of Texas. But Peebles gives you some more competition on that interior as a nice pass rusher, rotational player. We did re-sign Mekhi Becton and Zach Bond, though, at least in this scenario. To the Kansas City Chiefs here to finish up the draft. We're starting off with Trey Amos. He's a Spags guy through and through. He's physical. He's tough. He's not a grabby, though, which is huge. And he certainly has the size profile, the length. Solid athlete, not an elite athlete, but a solid athlete, can go head to toe, press man coverage, do what you need to do. He has that capability. I think he'd be a nice fit for them, and could add some more cornerback depth. It was a problem for them this season. Omarion Hampton, North Carolina running back. Another problem for them was adding running back depth, and that's what they need to do here. I'm not saying they have to pick it at the second round, but I thought the value was immense for Omarion Hampton. He's a solid receiving weapon as well. Him and Isaiah Pacheco form a great 1-2 punch. Kareem Hunt was invaluable for them, absolutely. But, you never know if he'll be back or not. And they could still add more help there for sure, especially as good as their offensive line has been. We'll see if they bring back Trey Smith. And in this case scenario, drafted Tate Ratledge, could be that right guard of the future. I do like Kingsley Suamataia. Could he move inside the guard? I think that's really what I like him to move inside the guard. So those could be something discussions behind the scenes, but I wanted to make sure we add somebody there because, hey, Thuney could be their left tackle. In this case scenario, I signed Dan Moore. Thuney moving back over to inside, and you can kind of have your offensive line from there. And then going back to Jordan Phillips over here, Maryland, I didn't want to skip over him, but he's going to be a nice 1-2 punch with Chris Jones. He has just got immense talent. He was chiseled, man. This guy, I'm not a dude I want to meet in a dark alley or anywhere. Not just an alley. I don't want to I'll be up there like, Jordan Phillips, you know what I'm saying? It's Godzilla. Man, he is chiseled up and he is strong. And he shot off some good pass rushing too. At Maryland, the film's a little rocky, a little up and down, but I definitely think he has all the talent. Bruce Feldman's guy, and yeah. And then with their final pick, we go back to Maryland. Caden Prather. He has some good size, 6'3", 209. He's a long strider as well. He has some good vertical speed. And I think that's what they're missing. They're needing an outside guy. Justin Watson's a free agent as well. So let's go ahead and add in somebody on the perimeter to help that out. And as I mentioned earlier, we signed Dan Moore. And that way you can move Thuney back inside if you need to. And then you have obviously Humphrey at center. We add in Ratledge at right guard. Suamataia can compete there. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. Juwan Taylor still at right tackle. That's going to do it here, though, for the 4-round mock drafts. Let me know what you think. Agree or disagree. I hope you enjoyed. If you didn't, let me know. Rip into me. Hit me as hard as you possibly can. Anyway, have a really good day. My name's C Sling. I'm doing my thing. I'll talk to you later.